The South African mining industry and unions are concerned about the increase in mining-related deaths. Now, this past week, a miner died at Sibanye-Stillwater's Driefontein mine. Today, families of trapped Lily mine workers are marking 1,000 days since camping outside the mine, where their 3 relatives' bodies are yet to be retrieved. We speak more on this. We're joined by senior researcher at Benchmarks Foundation, David Van Wyk. Mr. Van Wyk, thank you for your time this afternoon. What have you made of developments around Lily Mine, that it's been so many years, families camping for now 1,000 days today, seeking the truth or seeking just closure in terms of retrieving those bodies? Has this been poorly managed, to say the least?
Well, I think it's become a political football. Good afternoon, and to your listeners as well. I think it's political football that political parties are now playing out with each other instead of the industry taking responsibility and retrieving that container which contained the bodies of the 2 mine workers that fell into the hole when the mining company very irresponsibly stripped the pillars below them in the vertical tunnels. They did pillar strip mining, and I think that the DMRE should be very, very careful not to issue pillar strip mining licenses, which they are still doing and which can cause these kinds of cave-ins that we saw at Lily Mine. We see a lot of pillar strip mining being licenses being issued along Main Reef Road, for example, in Johannesburg, and this can lead to sinkholes and to tragedies. You can have whole buildings collapse down these sinkholes that happen when you strip the pillars below. The pillars basically hold up the roof of the cavern below that you are, the void below that you are busy mining. And the only gold that is left in many of these old mines is left in the pillars themselves. The pillars are pillars that they leave to keep up the roof while they mine, and when the gold is finished, the pillars remain to prevent the formation of sinkholes. And when you give a license for mining companies to do pillar strip mining, especially Australian mining companies love doing that, you create conditions for possible disaster. We've had 69 fatalities in 2021, which is up from 48 the previous year. That's 20 more than the previous year. And a large percentage of those fatalities were actually at Sibanye mines. And I'm not surprised that there's another one happening right now. And a part of the cause of the accidents is the very high prices of gold and other minerals at the moment. And the mining companies pushing their workers for productivity instead of safety. And so workers are working towards productivity bonuses, and they don't take due care and responsibility for what happens underground, and then they find themselves involved in accidents and so on. In this country, there is no bonuses for safety, but there are plenty of bonuses for productivity, and that really pushes the rate of work underground, and it also makes workers to be less careful than what they should be.
Mr. Van Wyk, the onus is on whom to ensure that, there's fair play on the side of businesses? Much is said about creating a conducive environment in South Africa for businesses to come and play. That's one thing. Then when you see a situation like this, especially with the context that you give of pillar strip mining licenses being issued out and you're calling for them not to be issued out, who should take responsibility in this case? You also talk of this being a political football.
Well, I think that the Department of Mineral Resources should clarify its role. Instead of promoting mining investment, it should regulate mining investment, and it should regulate mining operations. It is a referee. It is not a player. And what we see the DMRE doing is it is so keen to get foreign investment that it falls over backward to accommodate that foreign investment instead of actually managing that foreign investment in a responsible manner. So the Safety Inspectorate in mining is rather weak and understaffed and so on. And the mining unions and so on tell us that there's also a lot of corruption around the Safety Inspectorate and so on. The legislation is all there. We've got all the laws and so on for safe mines. But, those laws are only as good as the people who actually enforce those laws. And so we are sitting with a situation where the DMRE is so keen to promote mining that it's actually undermining safety.
promoting mining and undermining safety. In the case of Lily Mine, are you suggesting that there might have been or there was some negligence in this instance?
Well, in the evidence that has been given to the Commission of Inquiry into the Lily Mine disaster, one of the officials indicated that there was an irresponsibility on the part of management in that they did begin to drill too close to the central pillar that kept up the roof of the mine. And you must remember, these two people who died were on the surface. They were not even underground. When suddenly the ground below them imploded and the container, they were actually the people who were issuing the lamps and safety equipment to workers to go down. Those people are the least endangered people on the mine site because they're on the surface, they're working on a container, they come to work at 7 o'clock in the morning, they issue lamps, they take the lamps back, they issue safety equipment, they take the safety equipment back. They're clerks, basically. You wouldn't expect people like that to become victims of a mine disaster. But when the mine underneath you is irresponsibly mined, then you have the possibility of sinkholes. And a lot of our mines actually occur in dolomitic areas, which is very brittle stone, and also, in areas where you have conglomerate, which is old seabed and so on, which is very soft and very brittle. So the pillars themselves are not all that strong. And if you start interfering with those pillars, you're actually inviting disaster.
Mr. Van Wyk, you keep referring to 2 people being trapped underground. It's been widely reported that it's 3.
I'm sorry about that. I might have my facts wrong. It is in 2016 that this thing happened. But as far as I know, it was 2 people working in the lamp room exchange container. And at the time, I actually wrote quite a lot of articles and so on about what I thought was happening there. Because you have these different levels going down, with a new level every 100 meters and so on. So when the top level collapses, everything else collapses on top of each other. Fortunately, I think it was at a time of a shift change, and so you didn't have thousands of workers like you would normally have in a mine like that at that particular time when this accident happened. It could have been much worse. You could have had thousands of workers trapped underground.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time this afternoon. Mr. David Van Wyk is a senior researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation.